Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Armchair Athletes live stream. My name is Corey, and this is Armchair Athletes, where I do plenty of fantasy analyses, case studies, and answer all of your fantasy questions in the comment section below. Make sure before we get started that you follow us on all of our social media platforms. Those links are going to be in the description. Also, if you are confident in your sports research like I am, make sure that you go down in the description and join Underdog Fantasy by hitting that link. Use promo code Corey0410 to get your deposit matched dollar for dollar up to $100. It is a great app that lets you guess overs and unders and gives you constant fantasy updates. And this is beyond just the NFL, right? This is for baseball, this is for basketball, this is for soccer, this is for hockey, this is for racing of any form, really, for you to put together parlays, guess overs and unders. And the great thing about it is that dollar for dollar match at the beginning. You could be up to really $100 in the green right from the beginning. So that's pretty cool. So be smart with your money, of course. I understand that gambling addiction is very serious. I personally set aside a small amount of money every month and I don't go beyond it. There are other strategies as well and many other resources for that matter. But also make sure that all of you check out the Start to Sit One YouTube short series that we have going on here on Armchair Athletes. Those should be up in the next couple of days leading into the Saturday and Sunday games. And also make sure that you check out the resource tabs that we have in the description. So I'll be talking about a few things really. One is going to be run pass ratio. How often is a team electing for a certain play? There's target usage. There's some next gen stats that I did not put in there, but I will be doing in the future. So make sure you check out our resource tab in the description as well. I want to help all of you out research your opponent going into week 17, week 18, and the years beyond this for sure. So now without further ado, let's get into our week 17 waiver wire ads. And as per usual, I will be concluding this stream with a question and answer session. So folks, any start sit questions, do you have any waiver questions, do you have any, I'm assuming there's no more trade questions, but really any questions you have at all going into the second to last week of the football season, make sure you drop them in the comment section below. That's what this live stream is for, so I can get you your answers as soon as possible in real time. So now without further ado, let's get into our week 17 waiver wire ads. Let's start out with Brock Purdy. Yeah, I just did this before, and he is still not owned in half of leagues. That's our rule here. We're going after people who are owned in less than 50% of leagues. If you are in the market for stability, Brock Purdy is still your guy. He has now gone 3 straight games with at least 15 fantasy points in standard PPR format, and he has passed for 2 touchdowns in every game since taking over in that game against the Miami Dolphins in Week 13. Arguably, my favorite part about Brock Purdy would have to be the fact that he still has the easiest remaining schedule for fantasy quarterbacks with matchups against with matchups against the Las Vegas Raiders and the Arizona Cardinals coming up to wrap up his season. So he's only going to have a 6-game stint where he actually played all 4 quarters in each contest, knock on wood injury-wise. His injuries have been a huge issue for quarterbacks in San Francisco. But he's got the easiest remaining schedule. He's been super consistent, 4 multi-passing touchdown games over the course of the last 4 weeks since he really took over for Jimmy G. There's a lot to like with Brock Purdy. He's got the remaining schedule that really he could expose. He's had at least 15 fantasy points in each of the last couple of weeks. I mean, this guy's going to get you a solid number. This is for you, Tua Tagovailoa owners, your Jalen Hurts owners, your Derek Carr owners. We just got news that Jared Stidham is going to be taking over for the last couple of weeks. A little shocking because the Raiders are not mathematically eliminated, but Josh McDaniels electing to go with a different answer under center. We'll see how that pans out. Fantasy-wise, we know what that means. We got to pivot to somebody else, and Brock Purdy could be an answer for you if you were a Derek Carr owner. Let's go to the backfield. We've got Khalil Herbert. Before being injured, Khalil Herbert was consistently more efficient than his backfield counterpart in David Montgomery over in Chicago, with 5.7 yards per carry out of the backfield. That was top 5 in the league for a while for running backs with a considerable sample size. I mean, he broke free for a few big runs, but the big thing with Khalil Herbert was just that consistency. I mean, the guy would not go down his yards after contact, which I don't have on hand right now. It's got to be up there with some of the best in the league. Extremely hard to bring down. This guy thrived in being able to push forward for the extra couple of yards. And it shows here. Look at the consistent performance that we saw really all year. Had a couple of down games for sure, but if you look at what he did against Dallas, and he wasn't too involved in the air, so he's more of a standard and maybe half-point PPR move. But if you look at what he did against New England, against Washington, against the Giants, against Houston, against Green Bay, against, pretty much every game except for one against Minnesota and one against Miami before that injury. Khalil Herbert was one of the most efficient running backs in the entire league. So a lot to like there. One thing that we do need to understand with Khalil Herbert, this is just me being transparent with you, he was never beating David Montgomery in snaps when both guys played and were healthy the whole game. When David Montgomery went out a couple of weeks into the season early on, yes, he went out early in the game, and then Herbert had something around 70% of snaps because Montgomery just wasn't in there. Then Montgomery was hurt for a while. But when he came back, I just said it before, in games where all 4 quarters feature a healthy Khalil Herbert and a healthy David Montgomery, Herbert could not beat out Montgomery for snaps. However, we do need to understand that Khalil Herbert is still a running back who's getting a healthy dosage of touches in the most run-heavy offense in the league in Chicago. They run the ball more than 60% of times, blowing other teams out of the water. So that's something that is definitely appealing for a fantasy owner. Let's go out wide. This one might be the most appealing yet. This is why he was the thumbnail. Jahan Dotson. Dotson's performance lines up perfectly with the phrase heating up at the right time, or, getting hot ahead of the playoffs. In this case, we're in the playoffs, but he got hot going into the playoffs. The guy has come alive down the stretch. He has a touchdown in each of his last 3 games. Jahan Dotson has been phenomenal. If you have not picked him up already, I highly suggest it. He's averaging 8 targets per game in the last 3 games. You can see right here, he has 18.8 fantasy points per game. As a result, he's a must-add. In fact, Dotson actually has more targets than anybody on the Commanders in the last 3 weeks. He's got more than Terry McLaurin. He's got more than Curtis Samuel, and he's got more than Logan Thomas. His 7 receiving touchdowns on the year also lead to the team, with McLaurin and Samuel being the next closest at 4 scores. If he keeps performing like this, the guy will definitely come up in some of the later rounds of our upcoming mock drafts, that's for sure. And again, folks, this is just another reminder. A lot of these statistics that I'm pulling are from links that I have in the description. I made a little resource tab for all of you who want to do some more research on your own for your fantasy football teams coming into the last 2 weeks. Again, we do plenty of that for you, but ultimately, folks, our goal is to help you out-research your opponent. It's what we're doing going into Week 17, so as a result, I wanted to give you some resources to go off of and explore on your own, all of which I'm pretty much referencing here to begin with, but nonetheless, it doesn't hurt. Let's go to the tight end position. Taysom Hill, the Swiss Army knife, what can we say about him? Taysom Hill is, and it has always been, a wild card for fantasy. His usage took a dip not too long ago. Now he's getting more touches, and by more, I mean it's just like 7, 8, 9, 10. Cool thing about Taysom Hill is he's going to throw it, he's going to run it, and he's going to catch it. He's been getting more touches as of late. He throws the ball on occasion, and I would not doubt it if the Saints just start pulling off all the stops. They're not eliminated out of playoff contention. Nobody in the South other than the Falcons would be falling into that category. So it's basically the Panthers, the Saints, and the AFC South leading Buccaneers at 7 and 8. I'm pretty impressed with Taysom Hill's usage as of late. I was nervous about it before, but if he starts firing down a couple of passes down the field, and he's been pretty efficient through the air in that small sample size, wouldn't doubt it if he saw some more action under center for sure. And finally, one of the biggest requests that I get from all of you, who do I stream at defense this week? It's going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars, folks. The Jacksonville Jaguars have at least 10 points in each of their last 3 games. They've been impressive. Obviously, we have a New York Jets team that was forced to start Zach Wilson due to the injury of Mike White, but before that, 11 points against Dallas. Yes, they give up 34 points, but you could see they got a couple of sacks. They got a couple of turnovers forced. This team has been very impressive even before that with Tennessee and Derrick Henry. They kept that team under control for the most part. Before that, they were struggling against a healthy wide receiving core and a healthy offense in Detroit. Same situation with Baltimore. You're not going to have perfect weeks, but I would say that the Jags are definitely trending upwards, to say the very least. And that is pretty much all we have for our waiver wire pickups. So again, a quick review through everything. We've got Brock Purdy, we've got Khalil Herbert, we've got Jahan Dotson, we've got Taysom Hill, and we have the Jaguars defense that we could definitely stream. And these are pretty much all streams right now, right? You're just going to be picking somebody up and rolling with them over the course of the next couple of weeks. Let's go through a couple other stream options as well. Go into this league here. And folks, along with your questions, drop it in the comment section. I'm very curious. How did you do this week? Because I lost a lot of my first round playoff games. So I'm playing for third in a couple of money leagues, which sucks, but, I could still break even. So that's kind of what we're hoping for at this point. Austin Eckler is questionable. Definitely watch that, folks. We're talking about a top 3 running back, especially in standard PPR format. Let's roll over here. Trevor Lawrence also questionable. Deontay Foreman. I told y'all to sit him, and he had one of the best nights that he has had. One of the best weeks he's had all year. Honestly, in his young career, had the great week against Atlanta where he went 26 for 118 and 3 touchdowns. 31 for 130 against Atlanta on the second occasion, but 21 for 165. His most efficient night of the year. He did go 15 for 118 against Tampa Bay, so a little tie there with 7.9 yards per carry. But a career high in rushing yards on only 21 touches on the ground. Wasn't very involved through the air, but he really didn't need to be because of his efficiency on the ground. I was impressed with Deontay Foreman, to say the very least. He has one of the easier schedules over the course of the next few weeks. And just his high-level performance in that game against Detroit. Yes, it's a really vulnerable defense, but nonetheless, it's one that he was able to take advantage of and do really well against. Go here. Who else can we give you guys? We can do the NFL Weddle in a bit as well. This will probably be about a 1-hour stream. So again, folks, if you have any questions throughout the stream at all regarding your team, who do I start? Who do I sit? Who do I grab off waivers? Is this person even deserving of a spot on my bench right now? Who can I go pick up as a security blanket as Tua Tagovailoa and Jalen Hurts and Trevor Lawrence possibly do not play next week? With Tua, it's pretty much a for sure indicator. I mean, concussion protocol has definitely changed in the NFL over the course of the last few weeks after the scary injury with Tua Tagovailoa. And now you have the fact that it is him who's actually going into concussion protocol. I'm sure he'll be getting a very thorough look, maybe even throughout the rest of the regular season. Derek Carr being benched for Jarrett Stidham. Put that on, things I didn't expect for 500. If you have any questions at all regarding fantasy football, just hop right in and ask your questions. We're going to go in here and just look at options for under 50% in the roster ownership rate. This is helpful because, the waiver wire period has passed, so you can go and get these people right away. Seeing Derrick Henry doubtful, Christian McCaffrey questionable, that could definitely shake up some leagues. Go to the third tab here. See a couple of options I wanted to go over. Donovan Peoples-Jones definitely didn't have a good week last week, but I still think he has a lot of value. Just didn't get the looks, obviously. Had 5 targets. He got bailed out with 4 targets and ended up having a touchdown against Baltimore in Week 15. Against New Orleans, he just struggled against that secondary. Somebody I definitely want to talk about, and I almost put him in here. He's at 49%, so I actually could have fit him in the waiver wire ads. It's going to be Tyler Algier. This guy, oh my goodness. I mean, he could definitely be a top 15, top 20 running back going into next year if he takes the spot from Cordero Patterson, who is north of 30 now. Cordero's still phenomenal. Obviously, he had a record-breaking kick return for a touchdown not too long ago. Tyler Algier, the situation I want to look at with him and Cordero Patterson is simply snap count. Are we going to get a guy who's actually playing enough for us to want to start him on a consistent basis? And down the stretch, we just need somebody who's going to do well. So if we look at Cordero, and again, I believe I have this in the resources tab. I'll go and check this after the stream. If I do not, let me know, or I'll just look, honestly. If I don't, I'm going to end up putting it in there. Player snap counts is huge, right? The 3 elements we talk about with fantasy football players is availability, opportunity, and productivity. Availability being, are they healthy? Opportunity being what I'm looking at right now with you, and that is snap count percentage. How often are these people on the field? Now, this rule applies a little bit more to running backs and depth wide receivers, but obviously your 1 is always going to be on there, even in single back. Any formation, really. Tight ends, you sometimes look at it if there's like a competition between 2 tight ends. We saw like Smythe and Gesicki before in Miami. What we're looking at here is the snap count percentage from week 16, and even the last couple of weeks, really, between Cordero Patterson and Tyler Algier. And if we look, Tyler Algier, 59% with 42 snaps, 49% with 36 snaps. And if we compare him to Cordero Patterson, we've got 37% with 26 snaps, 50%. So actually, Algier took over the majority of snaps, and he did that back in week 13, week 11, week 10. Had a majority here because obviously Cordero was out. So he's been doing it a few times, a handful of times over the course of the last few weeks, which I think is a promising sign, personally. So Algier is definitely a story we want to look at. Johnny D says, I made the finals as a first-time fantasy player. It's crazy how running backs have slowly diminished in value in my league. Yeah, you know, running back by committee. You hear the phrase all the time. We're looking at a prime example here with Atlanta Prey in the chat. Good to see you, man. We're looking at a prime example here where everybody was saying last year, well, of course Cordero Patterson is the answer. Look at the fact that he's just this Swiss Army knife. He's this Deebo Samuel-like person who's going to be used in the passing game and the running game. He's actually classified as a running back now after being a return specialist for the majority of his career and occasionally lining up wide. You know, the Bears started to unlock something with him, but they didn't really utilize him a whole ton. They didn't utilize him correctly. And the Falcons gobbled him up and said, you know what, we're going to put you up the middle. You're a big body. You have speed. You're able to get through contact. You know how to do that out in the open field. And you're much more than a special teams specialist. But that's just kind of what we're talking about here. We saw the domination of Cordero Patterson last year. And now look at this. Tyler Algier comes in, swoops in, and starts to do really well. We saw the same thing in Washington. Everybody thought it was going to be Brian Robinson, or they thought, you know, there's some people in the Antonio Gibson's going to keep his job, his starting role camp, and they're sharing it. Even David Montgomery is sharing with Khalil Herbert. If we go through different divisions, let's go through the North right now, just because I was talking about Khalil Herbert with the waiver wire ad options. Okay, so we have Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift literally splitting things right in half. Jamal Williams had the most rushing touchdowns of anybody for a while. He may still. Then let's go to Minnesota. I would probably say the worst example of this because Dalvin Cook gets a pretty sizable amount. But if you look, it's probably still 70-30, 80-20. You've got Dalvin Cook, and then it's Alexander Mattison. If you go over to Green Bay, it is Aaron Jones and a very prominent A.J. Dillon. If you go to the Bears, it's David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert. Go to so many other teams. We're on the Falcons right now, Patterson and Algier. Patterson's washed. Prey, you know, he's not getting used as much. He's not as efficient as he was before. Algier's the younger back. You got to remember, running backs are not going to go until they're 40 unless their name is Frank Gore. So it's kind of a situation where we understand that Cordero, north of 30, had some potential unlocked, but is not going to be utilized a whole lot going forward. If Algier continues to perform like this, he's been super efficient. You know, that's the other thing we talk about, productivity, that third aspect of availability, opportunity, and productivity. Tyler Algier is a great option out of the backfield. 4.9 yards a carry. He might actually sneak in and have a 1,000-yard rushing season, which would be super exciting for a lot of fantasy owners. Tyler Algier, man, I really should have put him in here. He actually has 2 L's in his last name, so my bad, Tyler. But if we look, consistently doing well. And what I love, especially over the course of the last couple of weeks, and really we can just say this Baltimore game, but he's had a couple nice performances. I don't know what happened here against Carolina. He's a receiving back, too. He's going to be involved in the pass-catching game. He's caught 15 of his 16 dump-offs. I think there's a lot to like with Tyler Algier. You know, coming out of BYU, you got some of his tape here. He's a young guy. He's doing really well right now. He's a 5th rounder. He's actually a rookie. Not many people are talking about that. The fact that he actually, I believe, has more rushing yards than Kenneth Walker III, who was just stealing fantasy headlines. He was arguably one of the best waiver wire pickups you could have had this year. Yeah, no one's really talking about the fact that Tyler Algier is actually a better option right now than Kenneth Walker III, not only because he is available. He was taken 3 rounds later. That stuff just doesn't matter, folks. He's had 10 less rushes, but he has 14 more yards. He's a more efficient back, 4.9 to 4.6. There's a lot to like with Tyler Algier.
So you
doesn't have the scoring upside that we want to see quite yet. Obviously, Kenneth Walker III beating him there.
Data is
But if
available
we
anywhere
look at
securely.
Cordero Patterson's
Let's create a
production
hybrid
so
cloud
far,
that can change an industry. IBM. Let's
see what we
create.
got going on there.
Get a wham block. I'll show you. I will go wham again. Trust me.
I do like yak, yards after catch. That works as well. Algier off and
Again,
running.
folks, if you are just stopping in, make sure you leave a like and please subscribe. As long as you are getting value out of this video. If you're not getting value out of this live stream, comment your questions so I can help you out as much as possible. For those of you just stopping in, thank you so much. If you go into the description, I'm trying to help you guys out here. I have a resources tab. We're looking at things like snap count percentage. We're looking at player target usage. We're looking at run-pass ratio, what teams are the most pass and run-heavy. I have all those links at your disposal in the description, so feel free to help yourself out there.
Unbelievable job of awareness and vision and feel.
I don't think it's fair to say he's too washed. Still 4.9 yards a carry. He's just not getting as much usage as Tyler Algier. He's mostly been hurt, so he's missed a handful of games, but really, he's got the rushing upside in terms of scoring in the end zone. He's got more rushing touchdowns this year than he's ever had. Not really a fair stat because he just started getting used as a running back consistently last year. You can maybe make the argument Chicago, right? But only getting like 3 or 4 rushes per game there. But yeah, I would say Tyler Algier is a pretty nice option going forward. He's definitely somebody you're going to see in a lot of the mock drafts that I'm doing. Atlanta runs the ball more than all teams, but won that one game with Chicago Bears, and that's because Justin Fields is on the run for 8 to 10 attempts per game. Tyler Algier breaking free as the running back 1 in the second most run-heavy team in the league. I'm very okay with that. See Desmond Ridder and Tyler Algier and some read option looks maybe very similar to Jalen Hurts when he first came into the league, and Miles Sanders. Clearly knows. I think there's some exciting things going on there. There's some untapped potential that we're starting to see because he is getting used now. And CMC could go till 30 some. CMC's got to stay healthy, Trey. He just isn't speed and strength. He isn't just speed and strength. Yeah, I mean, I want to say his durability, but he's had so many injuries, right? He could go past 30 for sure. He's such a valuable asset. He has really impacted the value of a two-way back, and he's kind of led the way ever since he left Stanford a few years ago. Brian is in here, my subscriber of the month, or subscriber of the year, really. Brian Ferreira, always in these streams. I appreciate it, man. Made the finals in my league, which is a doubleheader in both games. Took a look at my roster this morning, and 5 of my starting players are all questionable. Yikes. Cousin lost by 0.3. Fournette, Bailing, you know, we had a couple of really weird performances. Fournette being one, and I wouldn't say that's too weird because he was a pretty good pass catching back at the beginning of the year. Big question with Fournette is how much usage is he going to get with Rashad White getting most of that. You got to keep considering the fact that the Bucs are the most pass-heavy team in the league. And then you look at Cam Akers. What on earth was that? Cam Akers with 30-plus points, 3 scores, the game of his life.
What a great effort. That's a touchdown on the review.
But he did super well. He seems to be the feature back there right now. Obviously, Darrell Henderson no longer in a Rams uniform. Congratulations to you, Brian. Congratulations on making it into the finals. Let me know what the rest of you are doing in terms of what round you're playing. Like I said before, out of my 4 leagues, 3 of them are going to be playing for 3rd place. 2 of those were money league, and I have a 3 league where I'm playing for 1st. That I'm actually a commissioner now, so that looks really suspect. Yeah, let me know where you guys are at and what questions you have right now. Brian, you've got 5 players who are currently questionable, so you let me know, man. What questions do you have? Are there other players that you want to make sure you can have ready to sub in? Should those questionables turn to doubtfuls and then outs, you just let me know. Like I was saying before, Tyler Algier is definitely an option I would look for. He's not really owning a whole lot of leads considering his recent production. 49%, so it's the flip of the coin. You can see he is one of the hottest people on the market right now, so if you're going to get him now.
Going all the way for the 8th time this season. No flags on the play. 59 yards on that strike.
Otherwise, I hope you folks are doing well.
He ran a little double move off the line, got the DB, falls down.
Let's do a little NFL while I'm waiting for some more questions to pop in. Again, if you are just joining, my name is Corey. This is Armchair Athletes. We are on a mission to help you out-research your opponent going into Week 17, going into Week 18, going into years in the future, seasons in the future. We're putting as much research-based information as we can in front of you.
A tremendous future. Daniels.
Chase, he's going to throw it. Thank you. I think I had a flag with him. There we go. That should be done. We'll go. Could you imagine if it was him? Nope. So not in the NFC South. Going to be in the NFC. Not a running back. We'll go. We'll go NFC West. We'll go Greg Dortch. Pretty sure he is about 22, but. Oh, he's 24. Not the West. Probably going to be a quarterback or a tight end because this is only offensive players. No, it's not going to be a quarterback because his number is way up there. It's going to be a tight end in either the East or the North. Just think Dalton Schultz. He's young. He's really young. Maybe we go Komet. Oh! Alrighty. There it is. Couldn't hear anything I was saying. All right, thank you, Prey. I appreciate that. Yeah, I had some highlights playing over my voice. Probably get copyright struck there. But I was just opening up Tyler Algier. We can look at some other options here, but I would highly recommend Tyler Algier for anybody having some troubles when it comes to just injuries, because we've got a lot of them this week. Again, Taysom Hill was another one. If you guys are just stopping in, the waiver wire options that we had before. Brock Purdy, Mr. Consistent. He's got 4 multi-touching pass touchdown games, and as many tries. Go to the backfield. We've got Khalil Herbert, a prominent running back too, coming into, back into health, and he's going into a Bears system that runs the ball more than anybody else. He could get a healthy dosage of anywhere from 10 to 15 targets for all we know, or touches. Jahan Dotson, he's leading his team in targets in the last 3 games, so that is beating out Terry McLaurin, beating out Logan Thomas, beating out Curtis Samuel, but he's also leading his team in receiving touchdowns with 7. Nobody else has more than 4. Go to Taysom Hill, the Swiss Army knife. He's gotten a lot more usages of late. And then we go to the Jags defense. Ooh, Justin Herbert or Brock Purdy. Let me tell you something, Prey. I had Justin Herbert, and I needed him to get 19 points, which is right around what he was averaging against the Colts in order to make it to my championship. And you know what happened. He got like 5. So, not too happy with that. We'll look at these matchups here for you. Herbert or Purdy. How about it, man? Derek Carr being pulled out of the starting spot. I would not go ahead and start Jarrett Stidham against the San Francisco front 7. I'm okay. I am fine. Don't do that. Unless you are very desperate and you're in a 32-team league. So we're going to have Ramsey shadowing either Mike Williams or Keenan Allen, depending. Okay. See what else we're working with here. We know Purdy is going up against the Las Vegas Raiders. Purdy's got the better matchup. We mainly want to look at the health for both of these players, so another, aspect of context that we want to see here. Again, if you're just dropping in, make sure that you leave a like and subscribe if you're getting value out of this stream. Started Tua last week. Okay. Carr not starting. Yeah, Prey, if you check the headlines, Jarrett Stidham is going to be the starting quarterback until further notice for the remainder of the 2022 season. Josh McDaniels, I'm assuming, making that decision, even though the Raiders are not eliminated. They're like 2 games out of the playoffs right now. They're 6-9, but they are not mathematically eliminated. Derek Carr, of all people, being benched. Not really sure he's the issue, but that's my opinion. So we've got Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, and then Jordan Mason. So we could actually be down to the 3rd running back on this team. Elijah Mitchell really came back for like 1 to 2 weeks and then just went back to the IR. I'm not sure how I feel about that. But, I think Jarrett Stidham, he used to be a backup in the New England Patriots system, which guess who used to work in? Josh McDaniels. So there's a bit of a coach and player connection there. So Jarrett Stidham, he hasn't really gotten a whole lot of starting time. The year after Tom Brady left, he shared some starting time with Cam Newton. Jarrett Stidham. So he went over to that Raiders system. He's got his old offensive coordinator in Josh McDaniels. He worked under Brady for a couple of years.
You're good.
Yeah, as you can see, he doesn't really have a huge sample size. 32 for 61 in his career. 2 passing touchdowns, 4 interceptions. That's who Jarrett Stidham is. So, he didn't really play in 2021, but technically he would be a 4-year vet who has worked under McDaniels before. There's an explanation right there. I don't really know the entire reason. Adams is a sit. Devontae Adams, what's weird, right, is when you go into backups and you look at, let's see what happened with Trace McSorley. DeAndre Hopkins did not see the football until the latter half of the 4th quarter which is pretty scary because DeAndre Hopkins is supposed to be a consistent contributor, and it's no fault of his own, right? But he didn't get much looks at all. It was mainly a Greg Dortch day. Just super weird. Trey McBride had more targets over the first couple of quarters than DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, McSorley just couldn't get on the same page, and Hopkins, if you look back at the tape, was open time and time and time again. So a lot of fantasy owners are probably getting really frustrated with that. I don't know. Trace McSorley just wasn't able to really get on the same page as a future Hall of Fame wide receiver, but then again, third stringer, he's only going to do so much for you, right? I'm not sure Devontae Adams would be a sit. You know, typically we still see our backup quarterbacks relying on the number one guy, but obviously there are some exceptions there, one of which being the Trace McSorley and DeAndre Hopkins situation. All right, Brian, we've got CMC, James Conner, A.J. Brown, and Christian Watson are all questionable for me. I'm not too worried about CMC. Always questionable, but it's totally fine by game day. Yeah, Brian, the big thing you want to see with all of these guys is, are they practicing throughout the week? Now, it's only Wednesday. If they're not practicing by Saturday, I'd be very concerned. If they're not at least limited by Friday, that's usually... I want to see a guy at least suiting up in practice by Friday. And then hopefully a full go by Saturday. Unless there's some indicator that, you know, they're not playing him too hard in practice because they want to make sure it's just considered a tune-up for the game on Sunday. And this is all speaking relative, right? If it's a Saturday game, you push it back. If it's a Thursday game, you push it way back, and you'd be panicking right now. But Christian Watson had a hip injury, man. Believe he played the first half and did not play the second half against Miami Dolphins, so he was pulled pretty quick. It's going to be interesting to kind of see what factors into all of your decisions here. But yeah, Brian, I have CMC too. Dude's always questionable. Henry is doubtful. Yeah, Derrick Henry doubtful. So what you want to do there, because really, it's Malik Willis, because Brian Tannehill's out with an ankle injury for a while. It's Malik Willis, and then, you know, there's not too much out wide. You know, Traylon Burks, Westbrook. You're not going to see a whole lot of passes. That's what I'm trying to say. And if it's Malik Willis, you'll probably see a lot of read options. So let's just dig into the depth chart of the Tennessee Titans. Again, if you guys have any questions at all regarding your fantasy football lineup, if you have any questions at all regarding your team's status, regarding anything in these last 2 weeks, you let me know. Folks, I do have a resource tab in the description. So just go in the description of this live stream and you'll see something for run-pass ratio. You'll see something for player target usage. If that seems like jargon, I'm sorry. Just click on those links and you'll do well. Tua's got a concussion. Oh, Hilliard's out. Can't say I knew that. So it'd be Hassan Haskins coming in. We're going off a very limited sample size. But yeah, so it's going to be Malik Willis and maybe no Derrick Henry. You want to talk about a team that blitzes a lot, puts a ton of pressure on whoever's in the backfield. Obviously, primarily the quarterback. You're going to have Malik Willis making just a handful of starts coming into this. Just a couple of starts, actually. And no Derrick Henry, and not a great wide receiving core. I agree with Prey. Dallas's defense is going to pop off. Can't believe I was so wrong with James Conner. If I kept him in the lineup over Jamal Williams, I potentially could have had an even better record. Williams has been terrible the last 4 weeks. Yeah, Jamal Williams has not had the best clump of weeks. What ticked me off about him, right, is because he was top of the league in red zone touches, and that's kind of gone down since we're seeing DeAndre Swift get more involved. I felt like for a handful of weeks, Jamal Williams was just the better back. Maybe they were babying DeAndre Swift coming back from injury. The thing with DeAndre Swift is he does have that pass-catching element. And Jamal Williams was more or less used as a red zone back, goal-to-go situation, kind of a bruiser. What I didn't like with James Conner coming into this year, and I'll take part of the blame, Brian, I talked down on James Conner for a lot of the streams you probably watched. He's not an efficient back. He is strictly volume-reliant, touchdown-reliant. It just worked out for him this year. And he got a little more efficient throughout the year. He was sitting at 3.7, 3.8 yards a carry. You see, since then, he's had a few nice performances, to say the very least. He's got 6.4 yards a carry here, 6.1, and then 4.8, 5.7. You know, he had some nice matchups, like one against Los Angeles Chargers, one of the worst rush defenses in the league. But, you know, he also played some really good defenses like New England and had 5.7. Bruised it out against Denver. Played well against Tampa Bay. James Conner is pretty involved in the pass catching game too, so that's another aspect with him. For you PPR folks, that helps a lot. Johnny says, I'm so petty with being in the finals that these scrubs in their losers bracket should just give me some better options to have for a flex option. So, Johnny, are you in a rollover league? Like, because then it's possible, you know, they're going to want some draft picks from you, but you could do it. If it's just a one-year thing, I'm not sure you're going to get anything from those scrubs, right? What's their incentive? They're not going to get any better. I understand their season's over, but for all you know, they've uninstalled the app. So, also, if you folks noticed the YouTube short I put up, please check it out. It's 6 seconds long. I put up one basically just saying there's a two-step approach that you want to take to make sure you never lose a fantasy football matchup again. I'll just say it's a joke. I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm not going to spoil it. It's 6 seconds long. It's on this channel. I believe it has Jalen Hurts as the thumbnail. You'll enjoy it. Didn't Connor have an injury for a while? Seems to play into that resurgence and no simple redraft. Okay, well, you can give it a shot, but I'll tell you right now, Johnny, typically those lower tier teams, those teams that are playing for 5th, 7th, 9th, you name it, they're not going to be too incentivized to give up some of their better players because, well, what are they getting out of it? If it's a rollover league, they're getting picks, you know. If you wanted to go out and get like a Brandon Ayuk, for example, they're going to be like, yeah, give me a 4th rounder, something like that, right? Yeah, Connor was hurt for a little bit. That's when we saw Eno Benjamin come in, Johnny. Was big on Eno Benjamin. I feel like a lot of fantasy analysts were, and he just didn't perform. He just wasn't up to par. And then Connor comes back. It could definitely be a factor. Fresh legs, if that's what you're saying. There is a gap here. You go between October 9th and November 6th. So he had about a 4-week gap. Keep popping those questions in the chat, folks. And actually, folks, this is what I want to do since there's about 6 or 7 of you on here. I want to bring this idea up, and I've brought it up to some of you before, so I apologize if I am repeating myself. I'm going to do a 0 to hero. I think I'm going to call it a fantasy football rebuild. I want to show all of you that you do not have to draft well to win consistently, or at least somewhat consistently, in your fantasy leagues. I'm going to overdo it, you know, completely exaggerate the effort. I am drafting the worst possible fantasy football team you could have. I'm going to draft all backups. You guys dropped me some names already, and I want to put these in a Word document so we can kind of put them together. Tell me who to draft. The rules are they have to be backups, and then my kicker and my defense have to be the number 32. Yeah, last ranked, right? Now, once that draft is done, how am I going to build my team up? How am I going to win? I'm going to drop a lot of those backups. I'm going to try and make some trades. Maybe I'll hold on to 1 or 2 in anticipation. Like if somebody's super injury prone, I think they're going to get more. I think they're going to get more touches, you know, that type of thing. How am I going to win games? Waiver wire market. So I'm going to go out and get some free agents. I'm going to be scouring after that stuff. I'll probably lose the first few weeks, so maybe I'll have dibs in terms of going into the waiver wire. But I am also going to try and make some trades. So I'm going to show you guys that you can win a handful of games through the trade market and through free agency. If we go here. Oh, Brian says, the more I started to win, the more I started to care. If I ended up not making the playoffs, I would have dropped my whole bench and forfeited my loser's bracket. All in for glory. Yeah, you get a lot more invested when you start to string some wins together, right? It's tough, though, because if you're 4-7, right, going into week 12, you're technically not out of it. You know, some teams go on some crazy runs. I believe I was 4-6 in the league last year, finished 8-6 through 14 weeks, and ended up winning the whole dang thing. So never give up. If you're in a rollover league, you know, maybe you start to tank or something. I don't know. Kind of up to your own strategy. But what I was talking about before, folks. So I'm doing a fantasy rebuild, taking a ton of backups, taking the worst ranked kicker, worst ranked defense. Rules are, once that draft is done, I'm going to make some moves in free agency. I'm going to make some moves through the trade market. And I'm going to string together as many wins as I possibly can just to prove to you that you can win in a league consistently. Not win the whole thing, but you can win a decent amount of games in a league while having a bad draft. And I'm going to show you because, look, if I have the worst possible draft, you guys will have no excuse in terms of saying, oh, I drafted well, I'm screwed. I'm going to intentionally draft as bad as possible just to show you that you can win games through free agency and the trade market. Obviously, step one, set your lineups every single time, right? But what I want you guys to do for me is give me some players to draft. So they can only be backups. This is months down the road. I just want to have some people together. So someone actually told me before draft Trace McSorley. So just drop names. They can be backups. They can be no longer in the NFL as long as they show up in ESPN Fantasy Football. I'll probably do some sleeper stuff too. I'm going to do a league with you guys as well. Someone had told me Trace McSorley. Who else should I draft? Just start naming backups off. Or meme players for all I care. Got a PS5 today. It's sick. Good stuff, Prey. And if you guys have any other questions at all, just let me know. Oh, got Hassan Haskins. Backup for Derrick Henry. Someone was telling me Antonio Brown before. We can do that. Yep. I like that's a lot better. This is not just a rebuild. It's a complete teardown first. Alexander Madison. All right. And that could be an interesting one, right? I could even get like a Khalil Herbert, and I could actually do something with that. I could use them for trade value. But I'm not even going to have the cards, you know. I'm going to take the cards that are dealt with to me. I'm going to kind of take over once this draft is done, but until then, it's up to you guys. Patterson, he's technically a backup. I'm not going to count that because he's gotten a decent amount of touches so far. He's kind of a backup because of recent injury. And again, these things could change. I mean, obviously, I don't think it's going to happen, but let's say Dalvin Cook gets shipped off somewhere else. Alexander Madison's no longer a backup, so this draft will probably happen like midsummer or something like that. Hodgins from the Giants, perfect. James, right? Yeah, Isaiah. I don't know why I always get those mixed up. But yeah, this is going to be a bad team. If you ever go on the ESPN Fantasy Football app, you'll see Russell Wilson. God, he's horrible. I'm not sure he's a backup, Brian. I can't do it. Although, you know, drafting backups may be better than Russell Wilson. That's horrible, right? Nathaniel Hackett gets fired. I think that's the first domino of many to fall. Interested to see what happens. They invested so much money in Russell Wilson. Derek Carr, he's a backup. So we're thinking backups going into week 1, right? So I think Derek Carr will still have, I mean, who knows, right? I don't see him sitting behind Jarrett Stidham going into week 1. That's more of an opinion than a fact right now, so we'll have to see that one. But I could do Raiders backup. Richie James, that's a good one. Yeah, it's another loophole, right? I can't do the wide receiver one. Maybe I'll really dig into the wide receiver depth chart though. I'll probably leave out all wide receiver 1s and 2s. Cause right, what if we go out and take like Tyler Lockett? That's a pretty good start still. I don't know. We'll see how lenient I want to be. Teddy Bridgewater, Bailey Zappi. I'll have to fill the positions too, so I gotta make sure. Remember, people were saying Zappi was going to start a few weeks ago. It's the Mac Jones train again. There's actually something going around right now. Will Russell Wilson finish the season with more passing touchdowns or bathrooms? I believe he has 12 bathrooms in his house. So yeah, the thing is people are saying, will Russell Wilson finish the season with more passing touchdowns or bathrooms? He has 12 bathrooms in his house, and he has 11 passing touchdowns, and he has 2 weeks left. And on the pace he's on right now, he might tie it, which is pretty bad. Not gonna lie. Jimmy Garoppolo, Trey Lance, or Purdy. Here's my bold take with that situation, Prey. I think Jimmy Garoppolo ends up going to the Jets. He's gonna work with Adam Saleh, the former defensive coordinator for the 49ers. Who needs 12 bathrooms? Apparently Russell Wilson does, because it's been a crap show. But Trey Lance, I think he just ends up being a supportive backup. I know he's 3rd overall. Brock Purdy's playing way too well right now. If this team ends up going to the Super Bowl, I think you have to stick with Brock Purdy. 4 straight games with 2 passing touchdowns. Look, I understand the 49ers team is so just chock full of talent from top to bottom. It doesn't really matter, right? Who you put in there, I'm a firm believer of that. I think it's on autopilot. I think you could put Nathan Peterman in there and they'd win some games. But the high level that Brock Purdy's playing at, it looks like it's more than just the supporting cast around him. He's delivering some really good throws in tough situations. I like it a lot. Got some more questions in here. Richard Hernandez in the championship concerned about my wide receivers, Jalen Waddle, DeAndre Hopkins, and Terry McLaurin, because starting QBs are out. Yeah, that's very fair. I have DJ Chark and Juju Smith-Schuster on my bench. 3 wide receiver league, standard league. Richard, we got to look at strength of opposition here. I'm okay with McLaurin. Heineke, I think, has held his own. To say the very least, right? KJ Osborne, that's a good one. Let's see here. We'll keep that open. Right off the bat, I think I'm okay with McLaurin. He's been getting the usage we want out of him. Chark is digging pretty deep, although it is, it's a healthy offense for Detroit. Is Heineke starting or Wentz? That's actually a good question. Oh, it's Wentz again. Okay. It's been Jahan Dotson. He's been the main guy, but that's throughout the last 3 games. I know that for a fact. The 2 games prior to this last week would have been Heineke. Wentz isn't, I don't know if Wentz is trash, but he's definitely got his ups and downs. Waddle, I think, did really well against a Packers secondary, allowing the 2nd least amount of passing yards of anybody in the NFL going into the last week. It's probably changed now because Tua threw for a decent amount of passing yards before he threw 3 picks after being concussed. Very okay, though, with Waddle. McLaurin. Hopkins worries me with McSorley, right? Maybe if Colt McCoy comes in, that changes something. I really don't think it does. I think unless Kyler was in there, it's going to be tough. Juju's interesting. Going against the toughest fantasy secondary in the league in Denver. I still think you're going to get some good usage out of him. What happened the last time they played? 9 for 74 and a touchdown. And we don't even need the touchdown, really. 16 points is phenomenal. He's still getting heavily targeted. Let's go Juju, Waddle. I think Waddle with his speed, they can get him involved in some screens. Oh, it's against New England. Again, Juju, McLaurin. Oh, here, let's see. And if you guys are just hopping in, make sure you leave a like and subscribe if you are getting value out of this video. We're helping you out-research your fantasy opponent going into Week 17. So Colt McCoy is back in. Let me see something here. McCoy played on the 18th, 12th, 21st, and 13th. 18th, 12th, 21st, and 13th. He went 7 for 60. 12th, he went 7 for 79. So 13th and 6th. 10 for 98. I think under Colt McCoy, he's actually been okay. Colt McCoy was at least getting the ball to DeAndre Hopkins. I'm probably going DeAndre Hopkins, Terry McLaurin, and Juju Smith-Schuster. The small sample size that we saw, that we've seen of the rookie quarterback for, I believe he is a rookie, for the Dolphins. Is it Skylar Thompson, I want to say? I'd be a little more confident going with Colt McCoy and DeAndre Hopkins, just because at least we know, right, that there's somewhat of a connection there. McCoy's able to get him the ball. It's Teddy. What am I talking about? It's Teddy Bridgewater. Yeah, so I'm probably going to go McLaurin, Hopkins. McLaurin, Hopkins, Juju. That's what my gut says. Teddy hasn't played great in the small sample size we've seen of him either. I could definitely see it being a rely on Raheem Mostert game. So my gut says Juju, McLaurin, and Hopkins. I don't blame you for putting Waddle in there. Chark is pretty deep into that offense, and actually the Bears' secondary has not played bad. You've got Jalen Johnson out there. Yeah, I'm going to go with those three. Daniel's in. We've got, bro, for me, all four of my running backs are questionable. Oh, no. For the championship game, James Conner, Ramondre Stevenson, Derrick Henry is doubtful, and Miles Sanders. What do? We're going to have to go and get a replacement for Derrick Henry. Championship game, half-point PPR. I'm liking this, then. This is for Daniel. Your answer would be Tyler Algier. He's owned in 49% of leagues. James Cook could be another one. He had a really nice game against the Bears. He's been getting more touches as of late. He's pretty involved in the passing game. That'd be a last-ditch effort. But if I'm being honest with you here, I think Tyler Algier has been getting more snaps than Cordero Patterson as of recent. My apologies. Going against an Arizona team that allows the 5th most fantasy points to running backs. And we've got 22 touches here, 18 here, 10, 11. I like Tyler Algier or James Cook for you. You could grab both since you're really stretched at the position right now. Zay Jones, what do I think of him? Trevor Lawrence is spreading the ball out a lot, but we're seeing a pretty heavy reliance on Evan Ingram right now. So we got to trust Trevor Lawrence to spread the ball out. Again, I hope all of you are doing well. If you're just stopping in, my name is Corey. This is Armchair Athletes. We're helping you out-research your opponent. Going into Week 17 of the fantasy football season, we'll be doing some mock drafts soon. Different analysis of different teams. You know, what teams have the most fantasy players that are really eligible to be starters for you. What teams have the least. We'll do some tiers, rankings of that sort. Break down different strategies and relevant statistics. And speaking of that, I do have a resource tab for you in the description. It's got a couple of different links for things like player target usage, run-pass ratio, all that good stuff. Metrics that I use. Zay Jones has been getting a healthy dosage. I think he's a good flex option for sure. Otherwise, we're probably thinking James Cook and Tyler Algier. Okay, let's go back to the top here. Wentz and Curtis Samuel are lovers. Yeah, he was using Curtis Samuel a lot more. Juju dropped 20 points against Denver a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. So I was saying before, he got a decent amount of high usage. Look, I understand Denver is first in a lot of categories defensively. Kansas City is one of those offenses that's just going to tear you apart no matter what. Jahan Dotson's another one that's really good. Johnny says I'll probably never play him since I have A.J. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, and Drake London. But is Jahan Dotson a worthy pickup over a guy like Zay Jones? Daniel, yeah, no problem. Make sure you like and subscribe. I'm happy to help you out for sure. Algier, I would say, is a better option than Cook right now because I think he's actually the running back one over Cordero Patterson, whereas James Cook is still sharing that running back role significantly with Devin Singletary. So thanks for joining in. I have plenty of helpful YouTube shorts. I drop at least one a day, or at least I try to, so check those out as well, where I kind of pick apart and analyze different players and their fantasy value going forward for the last couple of games of the season. Johnny says again, I will never play Zay Jones or Dotson over Brown, Lamb, and London, but interesting depth to have. Yeah, I think Jahan Dotson is somebody we have to look at. I have a full screen here that I was using earlier. It's kind of hard to deny something like that. This is just for standard PPR. Not a lot of people understand this. 18.8 fantasy points per game over the course of the last 3 weeks. And Jahan Dotson also has more targets than any other wide receiver over the course of the last 3 weeks. More than Terry McLaurin, more than Curtis Samuel, more than Logan Thomas. Now, we do need to understand, right, that it's Carson Wentz now. It's not Taylor Heineke. But, yeah. Make sure I didn't skip anybody. Looks like I got all of you so far. Liking Algier over Cook as well. It's just a more significant, amount of usage, and we can find that right here, folks. If you look up player target usage, it's one of the very helpful stats that I like to use. Just make sure you indicate the team so you don't have to search within the site. That gets kind of irritating. And if we get touches out of the backfield, James Cook, 20, then 5, then 7, then 12. Not bad. Let me preface, okay? Both James Cook and Tyler Algier are very efficient running backs. I could see both being starters in their respective teams over the course of the next couple of years. I would not be shocked if James Cook took it over in the next year or two, and he's like a top 10 or 15 running back. Obviously, he is Delvin Cook's brother, so that's pretty exciting as well. We had the Watt brothers before. We've had some pretty exciting families in the NFL, to say the very least. So we've got, this isn't what I meant to do, but you get the point, right? Touches on the ground, or this is touches total, actually, 25, 7, and 12. We can do the math here. 22, 18 touches, 10 touches, 11 touches. We're seeing a higher amount of usage for Tyler Algier, and it also has to do with the fact that Atlanta runs the ball more than almost anybody else in the league other than Chicago. They run the ball 58% of the time. Tyler Algier being the feature running back one with Cordero Patterson being hurt and not as efficient as him, and well, just north of 30 years old, that's going to help Tyler Algier's production. So, yeah, we like that a lot. Etienne or Chubb, standard. Ooh, let's look at these matchups. Just standard. So not standard PPR. Appreciate you guys stopping in again. My name is Corey. This is Armchair Athletes, where we help you out-research your opponent going into Week 17, going into Week 18, going into the next season. Got some exciting mock drafts coming up. We do fantasy football-related YouTube shorts every single day. We've got our social media accounts linked in the description. We're a hotline for all of your fantasy football-related help, so make sure you drop any questions you have in the comment section here. Once the live stream is done, make sure you drop your questions. In other videos, I'm here to help you as much as I possibly can. We're looking at Nick Chubb or Travis Etienne. Standard, I'll definitely consider that. Yeah, Washington's front seven, they just got Chase Young back too, and as you can see, even before that, they were allowing the fourth least amount of fantasy points to running backs, so pretty enticing there. Chubb is pretty dominant, I'm not going to lie to you. And Mr. Etienne, he was kind of struggling for a couple weeks. He's had a bit of a resurgence, to say the very least. Houston, one of the worst rush defenses in the league. Oh, it's tough. Let's look at strength of opposition here. And as we said before, Houston, one of the worst rushing defenses in the league. 4.9 yards a carry allowed. We go to Washington, 4.5. We're kind of splitting hairs there. It's standard. 22 rushes, 19 rushes, 17 rushes. I know Chubb was battling an injury and ended up going anyway. Chubb just hasn't been as sharp the last couple of weeks. Weaker opposition, just about as many touches, more productive as of late. Let's go Travis Etienne. I'm going to agree with Prey there. Weaker opposition and more productivity as of late out of Etienne. Let's go with him. That's crazy, right? There's a lot of names that you wouldn't expect to take over others. I've been telling people all year, ever since like week 4 or 5, I don't care that Aaron Rodgers is a future Hall of Famer. I don't care that Tom Brady's the greatest of all time. I'm taking Geno Smith over him because he's been a better producer for fantasy football. We just have to take who's doing well for us now. We can't worry about past accolades. We can't get accolade bias, right? So that's what we're doing. Do you see Jalen Hurts coming back this week, or do I stay the course with Justin Fields? He didn't play well this week, so I'm counting on a better performance. You know, Justin Fields is going up against a Detroit Lions defense that gives up so many points. I'm probably going to go with Justin Fields. Jalen Hurts doesn't have the easiest matchup in the world if he does come back. I believe he is questionable right now. Yeah, still questionable. We just got to watch him practicing. Going against New Orleans. Still a non-participant. The thing is, the Eagles don't have that bye week locked up. So contextually, we have to understand. At some point, Hurts will probably start again. Unless they clinch it with Minshew and they can just rest him until the playoffs. Keep in mind, if they get the first round bye, I mean, not letting him play for almost a month, that could definitely come back to bite them. But maybe they just think, you know what, he's fine. He's going to be sitting on the sidelines, being observant. No rust at all. I would play Fields against the Lions for sure. Mahomes or Fields? That's tough. That is tough. What's up, Tino? How's it going, man? Mahomes going up against Denver. Fields going up against Detroit. Fields obviously didn't run for a whole lot against Buffalo. That is one of the best defenses in the league. You can make an argument that they are the best defense in the league. I'm probably taking Fields against Detroit. That probably sounds stupid, but Detroit is literally one of the worst defenses in the league. We could probably back that up here. I bet you that in terms of strength of opposition, they just aren't it. Yeah, they allow the most fantasy points to quarterbacks. I know Fields didn't have a good week last week. Keep in mind, it was Buffalo. Look what he did against Philadelphia. Look what he did against Green Bay. Look what he did against Dallas. Last time he played Detroit, he threw the ball 20 times and had 40 points. So, ooh, they were looking at his foot before. I'm taking Fields against the weaker opposition. Yeah, over Mahomes. If not, I'm dumping Jamal Williams for a third quarterback and either Daniel Jones or Jared Goff. You know, Jared Goff doesn't have the worst remaining schedule in the world. Got to go up against the Bears and then the Packers. So Daniel Jones has a bit of a tougher task going up against those NFC East opponents that have proven to be pretty tough this year. But I'd probably lean Jared Goff. Brian, you were talking about, do you see Hurts coming back this week or stay the course with Fields? Yeah, I said stay the course with Fields. What do I do without Derrick Henry? Who do I start this week, bro? Tino, there's a couple people that you can pick up. Tyler Algier is taken over as the feature running back one of the second most run-heavy team in the league. In the Atlanta Falcons, he's been getting more touches. He is the running back one over Cordero Patterson. I'll say it right now. These are numbers that you see from running back one, both usage-wise and also productivity-wise, especially when we're talking about the last couple of weeks. 22 touches against Baltimore. Those are things we love to see. 15-plus points in each of the last 2 weeks. And he's only owned in 49% of leagues. If we're getting a little more desperate and we can't get Tyler Algier, let's go get James Cook. Owned in 47% of leagues. If neither of them are open, Derrick Henry being out really sucks. Rashad White's still owned in 66% of leagues. Maybe Gus Edwards. Oddly enough, with J.K. Dobbins doing pretty well in the first quarter and a half, Gus Edwards started to get some touches. And he lit the world on fire. So in this order, you made that ship. Good stuff, Tino. Glad I could help you. In this order, I would probably take Tyler Algier. If he's not available, I would go James Cook. If he's not available, I would go Gus Edwards. Gus Edwards and James Cook, I feel like, are kind of interchangeable. Hope that helps. Yeah, Derrick Henry being out is going to suck. Jalen Hurts probably being out again is going to suck. Yeah. Tua being out is going to suck. Yeah, nonetheless, I think you could probably go with Algier, Cook, or if you have to, Gus Edwards. I think those are three pretty good options. So, folks, I'm actually going to wrap up the stream a little early. I apologize. I am going to stream again later this week, and I'm doing YouTube Shorts every single day. I'm also doing a Start 2 Sit 1 short series, so you'll see me say the same thing with quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. 2 you should start, 1 you should sit. Those are very relative, so I'm not going to do that next season. I'm just going to do basically power rankings like you see a lot of other fantasy analysis done on YouTube. So we're going to advance to that. We'll do some tier lists. We've got some mock drafts coming up. We've got a rebuild series going into 2023. We've got plenty of exciting content coming for you, really, in the next week and then way beyond that as well. But looking in the near future, we've got plenty of YouTube Shorts, some videos discussing the Tua situation, the Jalen Hurts situation. Who do I go after in terms of recovery for them? Names like Brock Purdy, Mike White will resurface. We have plenty of content coming up for you very soon. So with that, I'm Corey. This is Armchair Athletes, and we will see you very soon, folks. Have a great night.